This morning I'm taking a detour from interviewing specialty boot fitters. I'm here at Cole Sport, a full-service retail ski shop. This is their flagship store. Cole Sport actually has 4 stores here in the Park City area, and together they are a force in stance correction. Cole Sport is a shining example of a retail ski shop that has made stance a core part of their boot sales. Doing so has been great for their business and great for their customers, as we'll be learning about. Cole Sport employs a lot of boot fitters, and today I'll be talking with 2 of their top guys, Scott Dudevoir and Shad Donnell. So, Will Hansen with Cantology. I'm here today with Cole Sport in Park City, Utah. I'm joined by Scott, or the dude, and Shad Donnell. Kind of like to start out with you guys as individuals. How long you been with Cole Sport? How did you end up being, kind of premier boot fitters? So you're obviously doing things right. You've got a message that resonates with your customers, and I'd like to explore that stuff. But let's start off with you guys, and kind of we'll work into then the topics I'd like to go through. So Shad, you're right here on my right. How did you? Where you been, bud?
Man, I started in the ski industry in 1991 in Phoenix, Arizona, of all places.
Wow.
In the repair shops and different shops throughout Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day a friend of mine I knew in Flagstaff, Arizona, came down and said, "Hey, you want to move to Utah?" And I said, "Yeah, let's go to head to Utah." So came up here, started building skis for Evolution Ski Company.
Okay.
Just stayed in the industry all this time, and started working for Cole Sport in the repair shop, and then working with Dude. I kind of started kind of interested, more and more towards the boot fitting side of things and more retail side of things, and here I am fitting boots. Yeah, it's I think I've done boots now for, I believe, 11 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's really fun.
All right, and he was here before.
Oh, way before me.
I got a year or two on Chad for sure.
A couple years. Yeah.
So how'd you end up in this?
I ended up in Utah. Ironically, it has something to do with the janitor of my elementary school, who moved out here to ski snowbird in the 70s, and he told me I needed to come out here.
I was at Snowbird in the 70s.
Yeah, it was a different place back then. So yeah, he knew me when I was a kid, and he talked me into coming out here, and this was pretty much the first job I got when I got out here. I was very fortunate. I was hired in '93, and it was a year that we were really kind of putting a lot of emphasis on our hard goods department. So we had been known largely for our European clothing, which was a good fit for Park City at the time, but really wanted to take our hard goods department and just raise it up to where it is now.
Well, it's obviously doing gangbusters from the boot fitting standpoint. My big thing, as I kind of alluded to, is I want to understand where it all goes. What is the ideal stance? When you send somebody out of here, where do you want them standing? Are they to be inside a little bit, dead flat? Are they going to be a little bit to the outside? Do experts need the same thing as beginners? Racers versus free riders? What's the ideal stance?
I feel like the ideal stance is a little bit on the inside, of that line, just kind of based off of, people just want a little bit more comfort out there. They don't want to have the skis so aggressive and have it be so,
so flat they're skitters.
Exactly. They want to have a little bit more control over the ski and not have the ski kind of control them a little bit more, And it kind of builds the confidence for them to kind of, make that turn a little bit nicer, a little bit more, a little bit better confidence as far as their technique in the boot as well. And so, and I feel like that center line is for people that are, like you're saying, that really greasy feeling for aggressive skiers that know exactly where their edges are.
Generally for recreational skiers, I like them to be flat on their skis. Some things depend on what type of skiing they're doing, and sometimes with mogul skiers I might, so first of all, I always defer to whatever feels comfortable to them. I mean, that's going to override anything I see or anything I do. If they feel more comfortable in something close to, but not exactly what I see, I'm going to defer to that, because everybody's different. But general recreational skiers, I want them on 2 flat skis. Bump skiers, I might, if they're competitive bump skiers, I might have them a little inside edgy, just so they can engage that inside edge a little bit quicker. And, I mean, we don't want the skis diverging, but, as a general rule of thumb, I'll say I want them standing on 2 flat skis, unless if there's some application in their skiing that would necessitate something else. Downhill skiers, any kind of speed event skiers, we want that knee pretty far to the inside so they can really lay that ski out far away without that inside edge engaging too early. So, I mean, it largely depends on the person. I think everyone.
Instructors ask for? Is there a pattern there?
Instructors generally want their clients flat
What do they want?
for their own personal skiing. Again, generally, since they're talking a lot about 2-footed steering, they want both edges to engage fairly equally.
So flat. Or, yep. How do you guys go about determining where they, how do you measure that? What's the process that Cole Sport uses for alignment?
I think, there's a couple different methods that we use. I like to use the caliper and find the center of the overall knee mass. And I've been doing that for years, and it seems to work well for me. I know other people, and I think Shad will agree to this, that he likes to go off of the patellar tendon.
And is that just center that on the center of the boot and call it good, or are you looking at whether that translates into flat? How do you get from center of knee mass, center of tibial plateau, patellar tendon, to this goal of being flat?
So after we mark the knee, I assume you're talking about getting on the evaluator and determining, okay.
What do you use for an evaluator? Is it a flat, hard surface, or do you float them?
Oh, it's floating. Yeah, it's definitely floating. So you're on these floating trays, and there's a wand that comes up. We mark either the center of the knee or the patellar tendon, and we want that dot kind of on the medial half of the wand. And so we just basically take shims, in underneath the boot on the evaluator until we have that dot where we want it. And then we're also checking for tracking. Sometimes canting can straighten tracking out, not always, but sometimes it does. And ideally, we want those knees tracking as straight as possible.
Now, boots don't all flex forward the same. Some will tend in, tend out. Do you watch for those models? You recognize it, or is it something that's mitigated depending on the shape of their leg, how the fit for a person is? I mean, how does the forward flex of the boot play into determining when is flat? When during that forward pressure are we really?
I think it's evaluating where that mark is being placed on the knee, and then you're evaluating, you're kind of watching it, like Dude was saying, tracking where that dot's going. And sometimes if you go too far to one boot or the other, you can affect that tracking. So you have to really be careful, not to go too far one way or the other, because then you can have too much weight on one edge and not the other, and you want that to be flat, of course. And so going back, you have to make sure that, as far as feel, when you're on a flat surface with the angle that you've come up with on the evaluator, and you feel and you watch that knee track, that's where you're kind of really feeling what's happening with the person that's just been evaluated.
We also want to make sure the cuff is aligned to the leg properly too. So if they're too far to the inside or outside of the cuff, that can affect their tracking, and they go to flex forward and they just dive in because they're too close to the lateral side of the cuff. And so we want to take a look at that first.
So you start on the inside. Do you ever do any canting within the boot, or is it all being neutral in the boot and then get the cuff right?
Right.
Shell work that has to be done. Do that before, because that could change afterward.
Sure.
You could drop the ankle inside, and all of a sudden things change. So,
of the people that walk in the door and buy boots from you, how many do you think? What's the percentage that needs some correction?
I find about half, roughly.
Needs something. Okay. And do you check everybody you fit a boot to? I mean, it's pretty much.
You can, we'd like to check everybody that gets up on the bench, but definitely, when you're fitting the boot, when you're putting different boots on, you can definitely, I tend to stand back and kind of look and see where they're at, just evaluating their stance. Is it a topic? Is it, we'll get them up there and see, and then like, oh, okay, things are a little wrong, so now we're going to correct them and see where they're at, or not wrong, but just a little off.
How many people walk in the door and say, I want new boots and I know my stance is screwed up?
Handful?
5%?
Yeah. It's pretty low.
Everybody, I'm the worst person to fit. You have no idea. They're always the worst person until, you put them on an evaluator, and it maybe can change the their day of skiing. You know?
Right.
And they don't always know what's going on. Like I was working with a woman the other day, and we were getting new boots and this and that, and she made a comment to her husband about, well, I hope these new boots stop me from crossing my skis all the time, you know, and maybe I need a tune on my skis. And that, I'm like, well, it may be canting, quite honestly, you know. And
It could also be, I mean, the ski base, the tune there, there's so many variables in this. We talked about forward lean, forward flex in the boot, but we've also got ski tune. But you got to kind of lock down some of the variables and go, okay, chances are they're not going to get, a real exotic tune. And
so I just put that in my back pocket, but sure enough, at the end of it all, she needed 2 degrees on one side, and and that's going to be life changing on snow.
Totally.
Yeah. Totally. So we just solved her crossing. Well, hopefully solved her ski crossing problem.
we talked a little bit about flat versus the preference for racers to be inside, but I'm seeing that for recreational skiers, the evolution might be more to flatten people out where they might have had a little bit of canting before. Do you guys agree with?
I do. Especially with an aggressive tip profile, it's going to engage so much quicker than a straight ski. And if you're, favoring one edge over the other, that it's just going to grow exponentially as far as how you develop problem.
You're losing that aspect of the performance of the ski. What do you think about the relationship between balance and stance? Does proper stance drive balance, or we've got people who put balance above everything else, but yet I figure if you're in balance but your skis aren't at the right angle to do what it is you're trying to do, then good for you, you're in balance, but you're not skiing where you want to be skiing. So being with your skis behaving the way you want them to be and be in balance, think about the relationship between balance and stance. Or
I do. I think about balance a lot with boots. A lot of people they come in with boot work that needs. They have a brand new boot and they come in and they say, "Oh, my foot's killing. I've got this horrendous pain down the middle of my foot, and I feel like I have no balance." I feel it's because their metatarsals and everything is being squeezed so tight. You've lost every bit of balance based off of how we naturally stand.
You don't want to put any pressure on that.
Correct. And so, with these new boots and the new footbeds, that we have here, it's a much more natural stance. It's not, we're not trying to squeeze your foot into something very, very small. We want it to be, the foot to be very relaxed and lots of balance in play there, definitely.
So when someone buys a boot from Cole Sport, is it they buy a boot and footbeds and alignment, or is that a package, or is that a la carte, or how does a la carte?
Yeah, you get the boot and the footbed and the alignment.
Evaluate their stance and suggest that maybe this is worth doing. Yeah.
It's always good to plant the seed. A lot of people, get on the bench and they feel like, oh, this isn't going to work, and they go ski their new boot and they come back and they're like, okay, let's just give it one more try. Let's check it out. And they end up, canting their boot, and they go out and ski. They're like, oh, I understand what's happening now. It's my skis are flat.
So in reference to what Chad was saying too, and with your balance question, I think you're going to be a much more balanced athlete, period, if you are relaxed. Anytime the body tenses up, then it restricts movement patterns, and it just basically doesn't allow you to flow with whatever sport you're participating in. And as Chad was mentioning, if the foot is crunched, or if you're not riding two balanced skis or flat skis, the body is going to tense up because you're fighting things the whole time. So you can never really balance yourself if you're tense. So if you don't have to worry about fighting your edge, one edge or the other, then you're going to immediately be able to relax more, and that's part of balance right there.
More efficient.
Do you route the toes and heels on all canted boots?
Well, we want to make sure that they're the proper height. So, generally, anytime we're affecting the height of the boot, we have to, cut the toe and the heel down.
Is there any kind of feedback loop with you do something canting wise to the boot and send them up on the hill to ski, and maybe route a little bit more when they come back in? I'm trying to decide between a 1.5 and a 2. Does that ever happen where you'll route it for a 1.5 and go ski on that, see if it's good? If it isn't quite there, put a 2 under there and route it deeper? or does that not happen?
I would say personally my experience has been very rarely, but I won't tell you that we haven't corrected something.
More instructors, more technical skiers that really know what they're feeling.
To it, as opposed to the full commitment to, oh, I need 3 degrees
Right.
without skiing 2.5.
Edges are too. They're really, understanding.
I had an instructor a couple years ago, and he wasn't even a full half a degree off. And, I was like, just go ski, you're probably okay. And he was very insistent that he wanted that half degree in there. So we did, and he said it was night and day. Now, that's somebody who's obviously very perceptive to what's going on underneath there, but a half degree can make a difference for sure.
Now, I hear that people, and you guys in Utah, have got a lot of powder. People don't need to be canted if they're mostly chasing, powder holes. Do you have a reply to that?
I think you should always be balanced, canted, flat. I mean, it's even if in powder, I guess if you're not perfect, if you're not canted, you might feel a little dragging of an edge, but honestly, you still need edges. It's still crud snow.
If you put your hand out the window at 45 miles an hour in your car and feel how much pressure there is there, and yes, you're going slower than 45, but your ski is this giant sail. And if your ski's at angle is not a plane that's conducive to doing what you want, then you're fighting something. Your knees are not in the ideal place, your hips are not in your balance is affected. So I think it's kind of sad that people think that they don't need this stuff when they ski powder. But
Well, they're going to be on groomers at one point or another, unless if they're all backcountry.
that's true. I'm just, are there things that I haven't asked that you'd think I should be asking?
I think, like the stance has kind of changed in boots. We've gone, like you were saying back in the 70s and 80s, very forward, very aggressive forward-leaning boot. A heel left, the lifters that we used to have that were cranked up in the heel. So you're really, really far forward, hanging out the front. And just, really putting so much on torching your knees almost, every day. And now we're flat on the ski. We are more upright in the boot. We can use more power and less movement because now we have more leverage. It's not, your range of motion isn't maxed out. And so I think that has a lot to do with, the boot fit as well as the balance, topic or the alignment. Yeah, I was at a period of time where when I learned how to ski, I learned how to ski on straight skis. And that was the, like you were saying, the fall line, the stem Christie, and I got good at it, then all of a sudden things changed. And so I had to kind of back up and kind of not be so aggressive on the new kind of side cuts, new rocker shapes, profiles, new boots, being a little more upright. Things are a little bit more, relaxed now.
Your control panel is very much micro adjustments now, as opposed to the big stuff we used.
Like you were talking, you can ski with the big toe or the little toe and really feel, and direct that ski according to the feel of your foot,
So one comment I'd like to make is that a lot of times I'll hear somebody say, oh, I only ski 5 days a year. It's not that important. I don't need to spend that much money on myself. To me, that person, it's probably more important to that 5 day a year skier than the 100 day a year skier, because they're only out there for 5 days a year. They want to enjoy it as much as they possibly can. And if they've been struggling,
and get the most improvement in that 5 days, yes.
Exactly. So, when you have somebody in a good fitting boot and they're balanced and their skis are reacting predictably and, symmetrically, they're going to, first of all, they're going to be less fatigued because they're not fighting their skis the whole time. So that alone is going to mean they're going to be able to enjoy their day longer. They're going to be comfortable, they're going to be relaxed, they're going to have a good time. That's what they're here for. They're here to enjoy their skiing. So to me, balance is balance, canting is canting no matter who you are, but I really like that 5 day a year person to know that it's paramount to your skiing enjoyment to be balanced on your skis.
Chad and Scott, aka the Dude, thank you guys both for joining me today. It's been fun, but also, congratulations. You guys in the Cole Sport, 4 stores here in Park City are pretty much leading the world in terms of full service ski shops' attention to skier stance. And given that drives my business, I really appreciate the work that you guys do. But more to the point, the skiers that I meet out on the hill that have had stance work done really appreciate what that's able to do for their skiing, and I'm just trying to get more people to understand that that's available to them, and hopefully they'll come in and see you.
We hope so too. Well, we appreciate the time.
Thank you so much.
In the next episode of Quest for Perfect Stance, we'll watch Dude as he checks a skier's stance using a Kaiser evaluation device to float the skier.